Imagine Boston in the mid-19th century. It is not just a city, it is the center of American trade, where ships arrive daily from the tropics, and the streets smell of nutmeg, rum, and vanilla. It was here in 1849 that a boy named Edwin Lord Weeks was born into a family of wealthy spice traders. The boy grew up surrounded by flavors and colors, but his imagination always reached beyond the horizon, to places where spices were grown, not just packaged. At an early age, he discovered maps and books about distant lands, and a little later the camera. Photography became his first window into the art of light and composition. He was not yet 20 when he set off on a journey not to Europe like most artists of the time but to Suriname. Imagine the tropics, mangrove swamps, bright birds, green hills. It was there, amid the hot air and unseen colors, that he created his first famous work, Landscape with Blue Heron. The painting is calm, almost photographic, but it already has what would later earn him the title of one of America's leading Orientalists: precision, tenderness, and attention to detail. But that wasn't enough for him. His next stop was Florida. There, on the shore, he picked up his brush again. It wasn't yet the exotic East, not India, not Morocco. But already there was a feeling that the world was huge, and that there was so much in it that deserved to be preserved on canvas. By the way, friends, imagine how many young people from wealthy families stayed at home at that time, ran their parents' businesses, and sometimes traveled to Europe to visit galleries or theaters. But Weeks took a different path from the very beginning. He didn't just travel, he painted, recorded, studied. And even then, in his first series of sketches, a unique feature emerged. His paintings are not fictional. They are seen, felt. Friends, please support us with likes and subscriptions for regular content, and thank you for watching us. This is just the beginning. But it is already clear that we are not dealing with just an artist. We are dealing with a documentarian of beauty who, from his first steps, chose the path of an eyewitness to the world, rather than an observer from a window. Next, Paris, the Academy, the great masters, and the first trip to another continent. But more on that in the next part. Paris is not just the capital of art. It is fire. Those who endure will become artists. Those who don't will return home with defeat in their hearts. After his first travels, after his painting of a blue heron and the wild beauty of Florida, Edwin Lord Weeks sets off for the place where all the artists of his time aspired to go, Paris. The year is 1872. He is 23, and he has a dream. Not about money, not about galleries, but about perfection. There he immediately turns to the most famous teacher of the time, Jean-Léon Gérôme. But unfortunately, he does not take him as a student. No problem. Weeks chooses another, Léon Bonnat. His style is precise, harsh, realistic. And this is what shapes Weeks as a master of composition, shadow, and texture. During the day, studying. In the evening, museums. At night, sketches, oil on his fingers, the smell of solvent. But he doesn't just study. He searches. And that's when something happens that changes the course of his life. Together with his artist friend A.P. Close, Edwin sets off on an expedition to the Middle East. They travel through Egypt, Palestine, and Syria. The roads are sandy, dangerous, unfamiliar. But everything attracts them: bazaars, ancient mosques, spice markets, oriental facades. And then Beirut. Seems like a normal continuation of the journey, but at a certain point, everything changes. Edwin's companion, Close, suddenly falls ill and is unable to continue the journey. Weeks is left alone, but he does not stop. Imagine a young American in the heart of the Middle East, without a guide, without a friend, only with brushes, paints, and a desire to show the world as it is not seen in Europe. It is then that his first great canvases are born: scenes of cart drivers in Cairo, figures from the market in Aleppo, prayers at sunset. These paintings are different. They are not attempts to capture the exotic, they are attempts to understand, convey, and preserve. Now imagine, friends, how many of us would dare to stay in a foreign land to continue working when everything is falling apart? It was here that Weeks' character was fully revealed. The silence of Beirut became his test. And he passed it. He returns from Paris a different artist. He is no longer being taught, he now teaches himself by observing the world. What next? Next is a country where the heat is like a wall and the cities are like fairy tales from 1001 Nights. Next is Morocco. No one is waiting for you in this city. Here people survive. And if you are an artist, prove that you have the right to look them in the eye. After the East, after Beirut, after cold Paris, Edwin Lord Weeks sets off on another journey, this time to Morocco. But nothing prepared him for what lay ahead. It wasn't just a trip south. It was an encounter with a reality that cannot be read in books. Rabat, Marrakesh, Tangier. In these cities, life had a different rhythm. Slow, dry, corrosive, like sand in your ears after the wind. People did not trust strangers, especially an artist. Weeks came here to paint street scenes, caravans, local portraits. But how could he convince the locals to let him paint them? He didn't know the language, he had no status. But he had something else. Bread. His bread. Edwin began to bring it with him. He distributed it to the elderly, children, and women. And gradually, slowly, cautiously, he gained their trust. For a few crusts, he received a smile. For a bag of flour, consent to sketch. And so he created one of the most famous series of portraits of Moroccans, including Scene at Sale, Morocco, the Moorish Bazaar, and Moorish Girl Lying on a Couch, Rabat, Morocco. Ernie, the artist, the son of wealthy merchants, distributed food in order to have the right to create. But that's not all. On the same trip he fell seriously ill. Together with his wife Frances Rollins Hale, they almost stayed in Morocco forever. Heat, illness, despair. But Weeks did not stop. All these portraits, these colors, fabrics, architecture, would later appear on his canvases at the Salon in Paris. And they will be perceived not as fiction, not as decoration but as testimony. An eyewitness, alive, vulnerable, human. And here, friends, I want to ask you, have you seen another story like this, where bread and paint become the only language of understanding? Where portraits are not posing but a sign of gratitude? That was his Morocco. Harsh, bright, alive. And then there will be the country of saffron, elephants, and temples rising to the sky. Then there will be India, his greatest passion. And the biggest blow. Everything is different in India. Sounds, colors, time. Even the shadows there have a scent. But the real discovery was not in beauty. It was in the silence that remained after loss. When Edwin Lord Weeks first set foot on Indian soil, he did not see exoticism. He saw history. Greatness that needs no explanation. India absorbs you immediately to the bone. Its palaces, shrines, elephants in decorations, markets, rituals, even the dust above the road, everything lives as part of a great ritual. It was his most ambitious journey, crossing Iran through Afghanistan to India. His friend, journalist and writer Theodore Child traveled with him. They shared everything: food, heat, horses, illnesses, notebooks. It was an expedition of two eyes. One an artist, the other a storyteller. They were preparing a joint project, paintings and texts about the East. But as in Beirut once before, the journey suddenly changed course. While passing through Shiraz, Child fell ill. His condition deteriorated rapidly. In Tehran, it was too late to save him. Weeks was left alone for the second time in his life. He could have stopped, but he continued. And it was this journey that gave the world his greatest masterpieces. These works are not tourist pictures or decorative. They show the contrast between beauty and silence, the silence after a conversation, a footprint in the sand. The Maharaja of Gwalior before his palace, a vivid scene of a meeting with an Indian ruler against the backdrop of a magnificent architectural facade. The Golden Temple, Amritsar, the Taj Mahal 1883, architecture not just as a building, but as a symbol of time that cannot be stopped. Mogul's elephant, loud, colorful like a fairy tale. But if you look closely, there is a shadow in every glance. Weeks saw not only the celebration, he saw everyday life. He did not paint these canvases from his imagination. He was there. He breathed that air. He drank that water. He listened to those prayers. And then he returned to Paris. And there these works were exhibited. In the Salon. In the Academy. The audience did not believe that they were painted by an American. But they believed that it was true. When we look at these paintings today, do we see only beautiful temples? Do we notice the silence between the brushstrokes? Perhaps it is the same silence with which he lost another friend. Weeks never traveled with anyone again. Only with his brushes. Paris. Rain. Evening. And a window overlooking the western sky. In the silence he is. And his canvases, still breathing with distant lands. At the beginning of the 20th century, Edwin Lord Weeks was no longer a traveler. He had become a living legend. His works hung in Paris, New York, Boston, and London. He was revered, invited, and celebrated. But Weeks himself remained modest. He could be found in his studio on Rue de Vaugirard in Paris. It was there, in this cozy, simple studio, among sketches, paints, notes, and books, that he spent the last years of his life. His paintings, rendered with photographic precision and poetic emotion, became a bridge between continents. And at the same time, a mirror of human stories. Even in the grandest temple he saw not only the architecture but the people who built it. And in the most colorful celebration he saw not only the colors, but the shadows standing on the sidelines. In 1903, a few days before his 54th birthday, Weeks passed away. But his legacy remains not only in museums and books, but in the emotions felt by everyone who stops in front of his canvases. Now that we have traveled this path together from Boston to India through spices, sand, and cities, tell me honestly, wouldn't you like to spend at least one day in the same light with which he illuminated the world? Friends, if you have watched this video to the end, I sincerely thank you. Edwin Lord Weeks is not just an artist. He is a traveler with the soul of an archivist. A witness to disappearing cultures. And a voice that speaks through color. If you like this story, please like it and leave a comment. Which work impressed you the most? And of course, subscribe so you don't miss out on future journeys through art. This really helps the channel grow and tell more stories like this sincerely, deeply, and beautifully. See you in the next video. And remember, a painting isn't just paint. Someone who wanted to tell you something. Listen carefully.